Several days passed since our last meeting. A party finally managed to break through floor 30. It was Masayuki's team. Just as we discussed with Miles, their conquest was progressing smoothly. Although this was a complete sham, as long as we don't get caught, it wouldn't be a problem. Since Masayuki had the unique skill chosen one, even if we slipped up a bit, others would still receive the outcome with a positive spin all on their own. He really was the ideal guy to handle public relations. Inside the labyrinth, the defeat of the 30th floor's guardian, the ogre lord and his 5 subordinates, was announced with great fanfare. You could say it worked well. Loud cheers erupted among crowds of people gathered in the inns and bars. Masayuki, Masayuki. Chants filled the town with a joyful atmosphere. Masayuki responded to those cheers with a smile. His expression was strained, but in the eyes of the audience, it was the most brilliant smile they could imagine. Masayuki's fame was steadily rising, and his popularity was far from hitting its limit. Taking advantage of that situation, there were stores with something like Hero Masayuki-sama's 30th floor conquest commemoration sale, and the merchants' eyes were glowing with excitement. Along with that, the town became even more lively. We gathered in the conference room within the labyrinth again. You seem quite popular, Hero Masayuki-san. Hold on, Rimuru-san, please stop teasing me. You're giving me a hard time. It was only meant as a simple greeting, though Masayuki seemed to be genuinely troubled. You showed spectacular valor in those amazing battles. I was deeply moved as well. Miles joined in the conversation, and it sounded genuine, to which Masayuki could only respond with a wry smile. I see. No wonder he would get tired seeing this type of reaction all the time. But to be honest, I barely did anything. Here we go again. You have an outstanding sense of humility, Masayuki-sama. Masayuki was probably telling the truth as opposed to being humble. The Ogre King was a monster that fell under rank B+, and his subordinates were each rank B as well. Even one rank B monster alone could drive a small village to the verge of extinction. With such a troop of strong enemies to face off against, it took some genuine strength in order to make it through floor 30. Nevertheless, Masayuki's group succeeded with little difficulty. Jinrai's defense went up by equipping the mithril full-plate armor I gifted to him. Thanks to that, apparently it became a viable strategy to use him as bait. Maybe because the other members were fairly skilled too, they were able to focus on offense and use powerful magic. Bernie's elemental magic Jiwu's, spirit magic and compensation effects from Masayuki's chosen, the combination of these factors had elevated the base power of their team substantially. Masayuki claimed that he didn't do anything, but he was already helping them by just standing there. And yet, this sounds weird coming from me, but the publicity has been great. In particular, the rare grade equipment from the special series coming out of the treasure chest was very charming. Right. That's what I was thinking. If you managed to collect a full set of a series, the equipment would gain a special effect. That was among the ideas that I exchanged with Kurobi. He apparently remembered and put together a prototype that was the Ogre series. The golden chest in the 30th floor's boss room would contain exactly one random item from this series. This was another dirty scheme. The weapon was randomly selected from among the 5 types: axe, sword, bow, saber, or knife. As for the armor, it could be a helmet, chest plate, gauntlets, greaves, or boots, but there weren't any shields available. What you would find depended on your luck. The only certainty was that the gear would be part of the Ogre series. Therefore, whether it would be a weapon or a piece of armor, even that came down to chance. Besides, there was no guarantee that a weapon or piece of armor would drop in the first place, since the golden chest the Guardian was guarding was set to only have a 2% chance of containing rare grade gear. Even if you managed to bring the boss down in 1 hour, that totaled to opening 24 treasure chests in 1 day. By that calculation, it was fine for rare gear to show up once every 2 days. This was optimal to stimulate the gambling spirit. It was human nature to desire collecting things that belonged to a series, and if they happened to receive duplicates, they could always trade or sell them. With this, we could give an extra incentive to challenge the labyrinth. What I got were ogre greaves. Yeah, you see, if you gather all 5 armor pieces, it will activate a powerful magic interference effect as magic resistance. This was the same effect that was on the scale shield I had gifted to Cable. That one could activate the effect on its own, but for these you needed to gather a complete set to unlock it. That was the difference between unique grade and rare grade. To put it bluntly, the weapons and armor of the Ogre series were made from magisteel mixed with the leftover scraps we had after processing the Charybdis scales. That's why the magic resistance effect was pretty strong. It worked against the Tempest Serpent's poison breath as well, so, by all means, it was worth collecting. Is that so? Yeah. That's why I want you to gather all of them and challenge the next boss, and hopefully, that will become our game plan for the future. As Masayuki's group broke through floor 30, the existence of the Ogre series went public, and it was only a matter of time before this information was spread around the world. With this, no doubt, the challengers would be burning with the desire to try their luck. and the sheer number of people wanting to conquer the labyrinth would rise to new heights. Parties were limited to a maximum of 10 people. No matter how strong the troop of monsters was, if the challengers managed to form a party of rank B and above, then it wouldn't remain an insurmountable opponent. They might fail a few times here and there, but if you considered it as practice against a group of monsters, then this offered a great deal of experience. Like that, I hoped for them to gather powerful gear and set their gaze on the floors ahead. This was a flawless plan, and everything went according to it. So, if that's the intention, would it be good for me to gather that series, too? Well, that's a tough question. The mythical armor I gave Jinrai is equally rare grade, but has no special ability. However, it offers a higher defense than the ogre chestplate. As it is, you probably could beat even the Tempest serpent if you really pushed it. The Tempest serpent may have been strong, but you only needed to face one of them. If you challenged it with a party, one person could serve as bait whom you could constantly heal while fighting the monster. In that case, Jinrai would take on that role, but I was sure he'd do just fine. Then we'll head straight to the next floor. Okay. Your active participation has been a great advertisement, so keep up the good work. Jinrai and my other colleagues are more excited than I am, though. I guess it's more fun now that the monsters drop items. Of course, finding treasure makes me happy, too. Monsters dropping various items. This suggestion was brilliant. Some monsters, like skeletons, didn't yield any usable materials, and the magic crystal was often off per quality. From those, you could only earn a handful of change, so the higher the people's ranks were, the more of a hassle it would be to them. But now, the situation had been flipped on its head. Those people who used to begrudgingly fight monsters out of necessity had started to aggressively hunt them down. The market was booming with the trade of materials. The result was truly magnificent. It was surprisingly easy to make the monsters that spawned inside the labyrinth drop items. It was the Dryads, headed by Trainee-san, that helped make it happen. What they did was force the newly spawned monsters to swallow items whole, putting it that way made it sound like a tough job. It was difficult to know where monsters would spawn inside the labyrinth. Figuring that out was very tedious. But the truth is that there was no need to do that. The amount of magicules flowing to each floor was managed by special pipelines. We set up rooms on the 5th floor and below for these pipes to pass through. That way, we created a system where large hordes of monsters would spawn in specific rooms. These were the so-called monster rooms. Trainee-san's group, the labyrinth managers, distributed the items I prepared to each room, then released monsters that swallowed them. It would have been a hassle to manage every monster inside the labyrinth, but when narrowed down to just the monster rooms, taking care of them was a piece of cake. Monsters that spawned in the passageways didn't carry any items, but we could wave that problem away by calling them blanks. Like this, we were able to efficiently deploy monsters with items on each floor. The way I intended it, the monster room was a kind of trip in its own right. But for now, its bigger purpose was to serve as a room that managed the monsters. Naturally, there would also be those unlucky enough to stumble into the room while it was a crowded monster den, but that, too, was a way to raise the tension. All things considered, the alluring profits the labyrinth had in store were what everyone was fascinated by. The appraisers are in for a treat. They receive 1 silver per session, yet the waiting line has no end in sight. You could find fruit juice and milk with preservation magic applied to keep them fresh for several days, along with low potions, among other things. On the other hand, there were also drinks that spoiled within a few days, so appraisal was a must. There were also failed works by Kurobi's students. Those garbage weapons were being sold at a low price. It might look like we were operating at a loss, but it was more like a giveaway. We could think of it as reinvesting a portion of for profit to bring in more customers. And speaking of the giveaway, there was a jackpot. Occasionally, Masterworks Kurobi's disciples made would be mixed in. These were an absolute hit, and the number of people who showed off special grade gear they earned in the labyrinth increased. This lavish feast had caught everyone's heart. Like ants attracted to sugar, they challenged the labyrinth day in and out. Items obtained from various treasure chests, prize money for breaking through every 10th floor, and loot from monsters. Once the challengers got a taste for these various treats, they soon became regulars. As you could see, the operation of the labyrinth was going well. Inevitably, the town was bustling with activity. The 95th floor is also thriving. Ramos triumphantly announced, to which everyone happily nodded. That's right, we prepared a new inn at the 95th floor, and this, too, was a smashing success. We had prominently placed a room in front of the stairs on each floor, featuring an unusual door with the word inn inscribed upon it. Next to it, there was a doorbell on the wall, wired up to call a labyrinth manager. When summoned, they would illustrate the wonders that lay beyond the door. To open it, you needed but 3 silver coins. It was the same cost as the labyrinth's entry fee, but for those who toiled away in continuous battles, it was a price they gladly paid. After all, most of the people who heard the pitch ended up using this service. And there was a definite reason for that. The structure of the labyrinth was ever-changing. Once every 2 or 3 days the labyrinth shifted. This made any attempt at challenging the labyrinth far more difficult than it may have seemed.